But moving on, let's come back to Africa, still talking about things happening outside of Nigeria. In a very highly disputed election that was marked by irregularities, technological failures that had to extend election days beyond 24 hours in Namibia. For the first time in history, a woman has emerged as the winner of that particular election, although still widely disputed by the opposition. But we see the fact that Nadine Nantewa has been declared the president-elect of, Namibia. Of course, she is 72, and I know, just interacting with some of her videos yesterday, and we're like, she in her strength and the way she delivers her statement, she looks a lot like a Nigerian mom, heading to government in Namibia. But the question is going to be, what are the expectations out of the first female presidency in Namibia, and what is this going to mean for them now? Haween is cementing her governing Southwest Africa People's Organization, SWAPO Party's 34-year hold on power since independence in 1990. So the SWAPO Party have been in power since 1990 after they gained independence, and 34 years on, they are still in power. Now, you would also want to consider, in all of these years that the SWAPO Party has been in place, what is the success story of the SWAPO Party in terms of economy, in terms of democracy, in terms of employment, infrastructure? Have they done well for the people to be heading on for another term of governance at the presidency? But having a woman in the presidential office on the African continent again, she's not the first woman on the continent, but the first in Namibia. This means a lot to women in politics.
Well, it definitely means a lot to the people of Namibia. And just going back on some of the things she said after the announcement, putting her as the president-elect with over 57 thereabout percentage of winning, and the closest rival getting 25%, you're going to look at her body language. First, for a 72-year-old, she doesn't look the part.
Absolutely not.
She doesn't look the age. And then you're also talking about the fact that as far as Namibia is concerned, there are a lot of attempts to, impoverish the nation, regardless of the huge, mineral resources and the resources available to the people. So she is talking about leading the country out of modern-day slavery, which is also a conversation, that we're having within the African continent at this point in time. I feel like the motherly role figure is already seen from her speech and the standpoint where she's going. So it's evident, but then we have to watch and see, because opposition obviously have also taken their standpoint. So far not in agreement of what is happening, but then 57 percentage winning,
it's a wide
and 25
margin.
Is a wide margin to be contested in any court. But let's give voice to the president-elect of Namibia there.
A blessing in making sure we take it, we put it under the care of the SWAPO Party. A party with a history. A party that cares for our people. And your candidate, truly, I am from that generation of liberation. I'm proud to have a mentality of liberation, because having liberated the people of Namibia politically, I'm now ready to liberate them economically. The opposite of liberation is oppression, colonialism. So they want to continue colonizing us economically. We
are fighting, against economic colonization by any external forces is a strong stand. But one way to fight against that would be through her policy direction for Namibia. That's the only way that an emancipation is going to be made possible for the people. And trusting the nation to her is a big trust. With 57%, that's a big trust. We do hope that she has the spine for the work that is required. And then, because there's a lot of expectations that will come. The party has been there in over 30 years. It's not like the SWAPO party has been credited to have been in its best form in all of these years. So how come, you know, they're still trusting the party with the responsibility of leading the nation? Just maybe it's about the candidate this time, but how much can she really deliver to the Southwest, nation? That's going to be a big question.
Well, if we had to go by comment and first what might be considered as a first reaction to her winning, we're definitely looking at an activist come leader put into one person, and of course you're also looking at a liberator and advocate for the rights of the people of Namibia. One would expect that her policy direction is also going to be tilted towards making sure that the people of Namibia are in control of its economy, and that people who are within foreign nationals who have their fingers and their hands, you know, gripping some places within the Namibian government and country would be able to be taken off, and the country restores, return to take control and full charge of that. The economy is critical, and one of the biggest problems within the African continent is poor economy. That is one of the reasons why we're always running out to borrow, and the more we borrow, the more we are at the mercy of other nationals, other countries of the world. So being able to fix the economy, being able to use the resources of Namibia for the betterment of Namibia would be a giant step. And if she's able to do that, then it will go down in history as one of the greatest leaders to have come out of Namibia. And particularly, like you rightly mentioned, the biases are definitely going to be there. And the question of, she's a woman, would she be able to achieve that? Well, and to answer that immediately, we'll point to Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, the chairman of the World Trade Organization, clearly, who is doing a great job there. So that and many other women all over the continent of the world who are doing great, things in their leadership positions, whether it's political or career path, clearly shows you that women can actually deliver. So we watch and see what will happen in Namibia in the next couple of months, spanning into the years to come.
Well, we see a lot of detail. We know one of the things that the SWAPO party has been accused of is disenchanting young voters due to high youth unemployment rates and enduring inequalities in the nation. So, but then you'd also consider the fact that just maybe because Nadi Nantewa was serving as the vice president of the nation upon the death of its president in February, speaking of course, Geingob, she was serving as vice president. Could these have also put up the strength in numbers for her up to, her winning margin? But we see that Itula, who came closely behind her with a 25%, behind her in the elections, is saying that this election cannot be called legal, free or fair. And these oppositions have also said that they will be contesting the results in court. But like we always say in Nigeria, if all our elections end in court, we don't know who will be in charge of governance. But then let's see what Nantewa does with the seats as president now, not just being promoted to the position as vice president of the nation. But then this is a big win for black women all over the world. It's a big win for black African women on the continent, especially where the conversation of politics is concerned. And I think that a stronger encouragement was to see that, a 72-year-old still had in her the drive to pursue a political career. Let's see how she best interprets this role and where Namibia is going to be coming. People are also having conversations about the kinds of revolutions that should be expected out of the SWAPO party if it is going to stand the test of time this other round that it has been given. But a big congratulations to President-elect Nandi Nantewa, of course, from all of the women around the world who are really, really emboldened by her win this particular very controversial Namibian election.
Well, this is a congratulations not just to her and the women of black descent,
also Africa,
but Africa in general, and that also points the direction to politicians and especially
male
Nigeria. And when it comes to supporting and ensuring that people have voted, and not because of what gender they found themselves in, but rather by the competence or by the quality of what they have to offer, and of course their abilities and credibility and antecedents that they have built over time. It's a beautiful narrative playing out, and watch to see what Nanti is going to bring to the people of Namibia, and by extension also contribute to the African continent.
Yeah, absolutely, you have to see what is going to be contributed. But where we're going to wrap up our international stories this morning is going to be Ghana. As on the 7th of December, voters in Ghana will be heading to the polls to elect a new president, and also they're looking to elect 276 legislators, and this will be the 9th such election since the West African nation transition to democratic rule in January of 1993. We know that there are 12 candidates in all for the election, but as is, the two primary, frontliners for that particular election. You will also remember that the ruling National Democratic Congress, the NDC, which has the current president who has outdone his time limit on the seat, is also the strong contender for that particular elections. But we see that several issues have ridden the country in the last couple of years under incumbent President Nana Akufo-Addo. And of course, we've seen the fact that Nana Akufo-Addo has tried his best to re-steer the direction of the nation, especially where the economic conversation is concerned. But these are conversations that are strong backdrops for this particular election. We are looking at deep polarization and a harsh economic environment, which has been triggered by the country's first ever sovereign debt default. Now we see responsibility for state of the economy, unemployment and ecocide among key issues dominating campaigns across the 12 candidates that are vying for that particular position in the election. But there are strong expectations. Approximately quite a number of people. We're looking at having at least over 6 million people participating in that particular election. But I'll be sure that the numbers are going to be as strong, and that this election will give the people of Ghana what exactly they're looking for.
Well, I'm looking at some of the statistics coming out of Ghana and some of the key issues. You're looking at high, cost of living.
Absolutely.
You're looking at the debt burden rising from the era of President John Mahama in office way back in 2012 through 2017, standing at $7.2 billion US. And in the first tenure of Nana Akufo, it rose to $32.3 billion US, and now it stands at $50.9 billion US. That is a huge margin when you compare to what Mahama did while in office. And now you're also looking at the price of staple food. You're looking at the monumental increment of over 150% in the likes of egg, tomato, yam, plantain, and other consumables, within the last, years that Nana Akufo has been in office. So the people are obviously going to react and possibly might be voting based on these indices and these indications of what he came on board to see and where he has taken the country to as a leader. But then, of course, you're also going to look at the present economic realities. Whoever is going to come on board will have to think around the fact that the country is already in debt. And then, of course, you're also going to have to think about how to turn the tides around economically, and especially as it concerns the cost of living. But then the biggest task before the Ghanaian people at this point is to choose a leader who understands the reality and whose manifesto matches, and not just by manifesto, but they also can see from the antecedents of the individual, the person has the political will and the capabilities to really turn the tides around, because otherwise we might just leave Nana Akufo to continue taking the country downward.
Well, Nana Akufo-Addo cannot actually continue to take the country anywhere. His limit, he's come to his limit, his time limit tenure limit as president of the West African nation. But we're seeing, certain indices, and John Mahama, who is the former president of the nation, is returning in this particular bout of elections, and he's of the opposition party, which makes him a second strong contender for this particular election. So we're seeing, the 4-year cycle of elections in Ghana, stipulated by its 1992 constitution, having a replay come December 7. Now we see several observers from different parts of the world. The United Nations has sent its observers, the United States has sent its observers. We even have political stalwarts, even in Nigeria, speak about that particular, election that will be holding in the West African nation, being beaten by the economic trajectory that they've experienced in the last couple of years. This election should be a strong fight for fresh hope, and hopefully it does take the people to a place that, hopefully turns things around for them economically. You have to be able to have policy conversations, policy direction, draft, the economy in such a way that it pushes the people out of the economic downturn that they've been experiencing. The IMF recently waived off, some of its debt burden. That's how Ghana was able to heave a sigh of relief recently, because of missing out on being able to pay back its debt. But this is strong hopes. We have let me get my numbers into proper check this morning. We have there's an expectation of about 79% recorded in the last election of 2020. People turning out for the election. We're also hoping that we're going to see about this rate or even a better rate of people coming up for the elections. But out of a population of roughly 35 million in the West African nation, that is a 2024 estimate of Ghana, about 18,774 people, 159 are registered to vote in the upcoming election. These numbers are strong. Who will it be swinging to? That will be the question. Is it going to be, the ruling party or the strong opposition, as it were, NPP, NDC? Well,
with Nana and Mahama coming together now, it's going to be a strong, keenly contested election between the two. One has very well laid out antecedent to his belt. I mean, you're looking at, apart from, the other indices that we've looked at this morning, you're also going to look at the revenue generation of Ghana as the 10th largest exporter of gold in the in the world, rather, and the first within the African continent. The fact that the mining sector, just like we've seen in other African countries, is ridiculed and bedeviled by illegal mining, and that leading to loss of, the revenue that would have accrued to the country. That is one point. You're also going to look at the fact that, unemployment rate grew from 6 to 13, and then eventually to 14, from 6.6 to 11.9, and then to 14.7% under Nana Akufo, and compared to when we had Mahama in office. So all of these indicators are going to spring. And you look at the populations of Ghana, you're also looking at the youngest population, contributing to one of the largest numbers or the largest percentage of the voters that will be coming out by December 7th to vote in the election. So what is on the minds of the young people is job opportunities. What is on the mind of the people is a better economy. What is on the mind of the people is making sure they elect a leader who would change the narrative and the trajectory of the way things are happening, and also be able to take Ghana out of the debt toll that we currently have. And this is definitely going to be a battle of the Titan. One, on the other hand, has a bad antecedent by virtue of what he saw when he came on board and where he took the country to, and the other by what he left behind before the present situation. So the people have that to choose from.
Well, former President John Dramani Mahama of the opposition National Democratic Congress is seen to be a main challenger to Vice President Mahamudu Bawumia, who is, of course, serving from the ruling New Patriotic Party, and also Vice President to Nana Akufo-Addo. Then, of course, there are 10 other people running, but there are 2 other candidates that are perceived to just maybe be in line to take the vote from either Mahama or Bawumia, and that will be Nana Kwame Bediako, who is an independent candidate, and also we see Alan Kerimeten. So let's see what the polls will hold. It's either between just these 2 persons, or there will be 4 contenders grappling for these votes. Over 18 million people registered. How many will hit the polls? 79% recorded in 2020. Let's see what it will hold, and we hope and wish the people of Ghana all of the best of luck in the upcoming election. But that's it for this international segment. Francis, we should quickly look at the front pages of our national dailies.
Well, let's get to the front page of our national dailies and call it a wrap this morning.
Rise and shine.